There is a big debt problem.
Right.
We agree that taxation has to be worked, but the problem with the current regime, and that is what Kenyans, when we did a survey, are saying, is that the government is not listening to them. The government is overburdening them with tax. Those who have pay slips, the pay slips have been raided in a way that has never happened before. And that pain is having an outcry across the country.
Good evening, good morning, wherever you're watching from, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Godfrey Gichuki. This is the GG Report. I welcome you to join us this day for an amazing conversation. And I have a special guest with me. All my guests are special. And today I have the pleasure of having with me Reverend Canon Chris Kinyanjui. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, Gigi.
I'm very, very, very pleased to have you here, and I believe we are going to have a very, very wonderful conversation. So, as I always tell you, the GG Report is a platform for big, bold, and honest conversation. We try to dive into matters, socio, cultural, economic, philosophical, political, theological issues, church matters. We go into all kinds of directions because we want to address issues and matters that are relevant to our times. And I believe you have enjoyed many of the guests I've brought on this show. And so today is going to be an exciting conversation. So today we are focusing on the Ncck opinion polling and a letter, a pastoral letter to the president. That's the topic of our discussion. I'm going to give you a quick overview of Ncck and what actually the National Council of Christians in Kenya is all about. And then I'm also going to introduce our guest. I will tell you a little bit more about him, and then we get the conversation underway. So the Ncck was founded in 1943 as Christian Council of Kenya, which then became National Christian Council of Kenya in 1966 and National Council of Churches of Kenya in 1984. So it's gone through some bit of metamorphosis there. Actually, it was the forerunners of the current Ncck was Kenya Missionary Council, founded in 1924. And then an Alliance of Missions in 1918, United Conference of Missionary Societies in 1913. All those organizations. So the current Ncck arose from that very interesting history of the Christian work and missionary efforts in this country. And so the church has always has always actually been organized around councils. And so the mission of the council is to facilitate the united mission of the Christian church in Kenya by promoting fellowship and ecumenism. And Reverend Kinyanjui, I'm going to be asking you to speak about ecumenism, what it is. A lot of people hear this and they get a little bit muddled. Then, of course, nurturing a common understanding of the Christian faith and mission, building the capacities of its membership, enhancing the creation of a just and sustainable society, and upholding its corporate health, identity, heritage, and sustainability. Ncck obviously has to be sustainable, so there is a mandate. And Chris Kinyanjui here, Canon Chris Kinyanjui, he is the General Secretary. That's one of his mandates. So now, a couple of weeks ago, Ncck conducted an opinion poll, and consequent to this, the council published a letter to the president. What Chris Kinyanjui has told me is a pastoral letter to the president. So we are going to discuss that, and we'll discuss Ncck missions in general, its strategy, its latest effort, what that particular letter pastoral letter to the president, produce what's happening. And then, of course, we are going to look at some of the pressing issues, high taxes, levies, national debt, among other issues that we know are very, very pressing. All right. So, but before I ask Reverend Canon Kinyanjui to start the discussion, I would like to introduce him to you very, very briefly. He's the General Secretary, like I said, of Ncck since October 2019. Canon Kinyanjui is an ordained priest of the Anglican Churches of Kenya and serves in the Anglican Church of Kenya Diocese of Machakos. That's wonderful. He holds a master's degree in international economic law from the University of South Africa, a bachelor's of law degree from the Great University of Nairobi, and of course, a diploma in legal practice from the Kenya School of Law. That's what you have to do to get, admitted into the bar, which you actually did a couple of years ago, almost 22 years ago. Canon Kinyanjui is a certified public secretary, that is CPS Kenya, and a member of the Certified Public Secretaries of Kenya and the Law Society of Kenya as well. Before his appointment to Ncck, Canon Kinyanjui, actually, interestingly, you served as the clerk of the County Assembly of Murang'a and the secretary of the County Assembly Service Board from 2014 to September 2019. Very amazing career, and thank you very much for coming on the show. I think I've given the background, so I think we don't need to go into that. So let's talk about Ncck. And Canon Kinyanjui, please tell us about the issues, the pressing issues of Ncck, where it is right now, what's keeping you guys awake, what is happening. Let's begin from there, but you're also free to tell us a little bit about your family, your background, and more than that. Right. So welcome.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much for that broad and quite elaborate. Sometimes you talk about Ncck or you talk about myself, and sometimes you wonder, is that me? I don't know whether that introduction actually does that.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of the viewers, it's good to just contextualize that and say that Ncck brought together four main churches or missions that were there in 1908.
Okay.
The African Inland Mission, that is the AIC now.
Right.
The Scottish Mission, Church Mission, which formed the Presbyterian. Then there was the Anglican Church.
Yes.
At that time it was the CIM.
Okay.
The Church Mission Society, CMS.
CMS, yes.
And then the Friends Church was also involved.
Okay.
And the Methodist.
All right.
So they came together and held several conferences to ask themselves, how do we work together? Because if you remember, we were a colony or a protectorate by around 1908.
Yes.
And therefore, the church was running the schools, the churches were running the hospitals, the churches were introducing farming and agriculture, and therefore, there was no government really, but a very thin one that was run by the British as they converted Iberia into a colony, and the protectorate and so on and so forth. So we have come a long way.
Yes.
And in a way, that is what gives us this desire to serve, because we are Christ-centered.
Right.
It's about Jesus. With Jesus, wherever he went, he did good things. He healed people, he educated people, he taught people about God and so on. And that is the ministry that we are still continuing. And fast forward, we also had a very big challenge when Kenya was declared a colony. And every Kenyan became a tenant at the will of the crown. Okay. Because all the land became the land of the crown.
Yeah, it was bequeathed to the royal crown.
And the Ncck then protested and sent several pastoral letters to the colonial government saying, Kenya belongs to the locals, the natives.
Okay.
And it is wrong for the British government to expropriate the land of the locals.
Okay.
Through the order in council.
All right.
And then fast forward, a policy was also passed around 1920s.
Okay.
That Africans should not be educated beyond class 4.
Okay.
So that, because it's very hard to colonize people who are educated. So to keep them at a certain level, it was decided, and there's actually a paper that you can get even online, that for Africans, they are not going to go beyond a certain level of education.
Okay.
And that is why exams were introduced.
Right.
To basically fail as many people as possible.
Oh, really?
So that only a small group of chosen few go forward. When that happened, again, the Ncck, it was called Alliance of Missions in Kenya.
Right.
That is when now they passed a resolution.
Right.
That the church must start a high school for Africans.
Right.
For African gentlemen, as we say.
Right.
And that's how Alliance High School was formed in the 1920s.
Okay.
So that it can be a pipeline, a staircase for Africans to go beyond where the colonial government wanted them to reach.
Okay.
And it was very visionary, because when you read the minutes of the Ncck, you find that they said they want the Africans to be ready for independence.
Right.
So that when they are ready, the people who have been educated, who are Africans, will be able to run the government.
That's correct.
And that is what happened. If you look at the Jomo Kenyatta cabinet and government, it was full of Alliance alumni.
It was
and the rest is history. So the Ncck has played a very key role in several places. And those are just examples that I want to show. And therefore, this is not our engagement with government is very constructive.
Right.
In the sense that we're able to question policies.
Yes.
And that heritage has carried on. And therefore, even today, we have, if you look at our history, I think during Moi's time, the biggest contribution that Ncck made was in the search for a new constitution.
Right.
And in 1986, if you remember, there was a Canon delegate conference in Kasarani.
Right.
That passed a resolution that people in Kenya will vote through Mlolongo.
Yes, the famous
So
Mlolongo.
you queue behind the person that you're voting.
Yes.
So it was not verifiable, it was not secret. And Ncck was holding a conference at KU University.
Yes.
So when that message came, they held a consultation and they said, how are we as pastors going to queue behind somebody and expose ourselves in terms of either endorsing or opposing another candidate?
You can imagine your bishop is on that queue.
Yes.
JJ Kamono.
Yes.
And the general secretary of the church is in the otother queue.
Behind another candidate.
Yes.
So it was absurd and obnoxious, and the Ncck passed a resolution, and they did another pastoral letter. Saying that Kanu has messed up, has done a very bad decision. The people of Kenya should vote through the secret ballot. But the division that now ensued made actually even Ncck be split, because some churches actually left the Ncck.
Yes.
Churches like AIC, churches like Church of God, churches like PAG, they were members from the beginning.
Right.
They left at that time. But the Ncck felt that it was obviously against the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It was against all the protocols and conventions that Kenya had signed.
Yes, yes.
And therefore, the 1988 election were carried out under the Mlolongo.
87.
88. We had elections in 88.
Oh yeah, it's kind of pushed a little bit.
Yes,
into
the decision by Kanu was made in 86.
86.
But then the constitution was amended to put Mlolongo as a method of election.
All right.
And then you remember in 1988 there was a big fallout, because if GG had the longest queue, that is the person who lost. The one with the shortest queue is the one who won.
No, I know. It was messy. It was really messy.
Yes.
That Mlolongo thing was actually a very serious failed experiment.
So we were able to turn that around by 1992. And Ncck contributed to reversing the Mlolongo system so that we went back to the secret ballot by 1992.
Yes.
But we also said Kanu is not going to be the only party. You remember there was Section 2A.
Yes, yes.
We said now we have to have competitive politics, we must have multi-party politics.
Right.
So we got those two scores in 1992. Of course, with the support of the political class, the business community, the other religious fraternity, we were able to all agree and rally the country together towards that. That's a very big contribution. And eventually that is what gave birth to the desire of Kenyans to overhaul the constitution.
That's true.
So we say the problem is not multi-party. The problem is not secret ballot. The problem is that we have a colonial constitution.
Okay.
Written by us in Lancaster, in the UK.
Right.
It is time for us to write ours here.
Yes.
And that is how now the process of writing a new constitution came about. And the Ncck is the one who came up with the idea that we need to have a people-driven constitution.
Okay.
Where people themselves actually give themselves their constitution. And that the people themselves are the sovereign.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
You know, we had a heritage of the imperial system within the British culture.
Yes.
But as we didn't have a king or a queen, Kenyans were the sovereign themselves. And that is why Article 1 is there. And you know the Joya case, Joya played a very key role and within Ncck and outside to actually bring the issue that Kenyans are the sovereign. And they exercise their power either directly or through elected representatives.
Yes.
So that was a very big achievement that I believe has shaped Kenya in a very deep manner.
Yes.
And of course, in 2010, we were able to get a new constitution that is fairly the most vibrant in Africa.
That's true. And you know, actually, I must remind our viewers that you know, sometimes politicians want to really like, you know, make scores, you know, how they are the champions of the liberations. And you know, there are many versions of how many liberations we have had, whether this is the second or the third and stuff like that. But you actually, you know, you clarifying that actually the church, and we're talking specifically National Council of Christian Churches of Kenya, and men and women of goodwill, led by the church people, actually working not so much in the political space per se. They actually championed the transformation of this nation, and that needs to be said very clearly. Absolutely amazing. And so, that's really need to be said clearly. Now, of course, we need to jump forward because we have a matter we want to discuss a little bit more closely. A lot has happened since the new constitution, and I think it really transformed Kenya in many ways, created a completely different governance structure, created the counties, which now we see they have had their own transformational impact. Maybe in summary, because I'm sure I want you to summarize that, how would you rate the kind of transformative the way the new constitution has transformed our general political climate? And do you think we are in a much better position, or do we still have another revolution to do so that we can fix the next round of you know, challenges that we are facing?
Well, moving forward, I think with the 2010 constitution, you can see that from a political angle, there was the dispersal of power.
Right.
So that there was devolution of power from the national to the counties.
Right.
And the overbearing imperial presidency that was obtaining before has kind of been reduced.
Right.
But I think many scholars and many church leaders still feel like there's too much power still at the presidency.
Yes.
And the executive that needs further interrogation, and I think that's a conversation moving forward.
Yeah.
But there was also checks and balances.
Yes.
Because what this constitution did is, first of all, to recognize people as the sovereign.
Right.
That they are the ones who give power to the executive. Because the hierarchy is that God created us. From us as Christians, we believe God created us. And then us as the people, we create and write our own constitution.
Yes.
So God is here, people are here. People are created by God. We are all creatures of God.
We are God's, we bear the image of God.
Yes.
We are God's viceroy. We are
co-creators with God.
Yes.
Part of the things that we have co-created is a constitution.
Yes.
The 2010 constitution for now. And now constitution is the one that creates the government.
Right.
Yeah? And then the government has 3 arms. Yeah?
Yes.
So you can see the hierarchy. There is God, there is the people,
Right.
there is the constitution,
Right.
and then there is the government with its three arms.
Yes.
So that is something that I think, and I don't know how much we need to explain so that Kenyans are able to absorb that.
Yes.
Because people rank much, much higher than the government. The
Right.
government is a creature of the constitution.
Right.
Yeah, because people have created the katiba. The
Yeah, and it's
constitution.
created to actually like execute the will of the people and defend. In fact, very specifically, defend the liberties of the individual person.
Exactly.
Yeah, so and I think that needs to be said so that whenever the liberties and the freedom and the ability for the individual person to fully express themselves is in question, the government is held to account for that, and upon the government is vested. Of course, once you vest, say, state power, military power, so obviously the guys will run that.
Yes, that's like the way you employ someone at your farm.
Yes.
You give them a tractor, you give them some pangas and other sharp implements.
Yes.
You may even arm them to
Yes.
protect your cows,
Yes.
even with a gun. But it doesn't mean that the farm belongs to them.
Right.
The farm has an owner. That's a very big philosophical and also theological underpinning
Yes.
to the way Kenyans should feel. Because you have talked about how Kenyans were able to transform Kenya and the transformation that is continuing.
Yes.
I want Kenyans to know that they are the agency
Yes.
that God uses to transform society.
Exactly.
And the obstacles that they see, it is them that God is going to use to do it. They can amend the constitution, they can change governments,
Yes.
and they have done that. That's why people have the vote.
Yes.
Yeah, because you decide who you give the vote. And that is why we also defended the secret ballot.
But then, Canon Kinyanjui, sometimes even when preachers sometimes fail to appreciate how valuable some of these, ideas are that secret ballot. You remember in the Bible, there was this lot, casting of lot to replace Judas, and the disciples did that. We could even dismiss, it's 2,000 years ago, why does it matter? But that principle, which is a biblical principle, is saying casting of lot was a traditional way of settling a matter without human prejudice.
Exactly.
So let's all put our lot in here, and then the person who gets allotted, that becomes the leader.
Exactly.
So that we remove no more human bias. Absolutely amazing. We know that Kenya has been going through quite some bit of challenges since the new government was elected, and some of the the key issues, rising taxes. While the government promised, to look after the hustlers.
To bring down the taxes.
Bring down taxes, make sure the hustlers are sorted, and then of course this unending public debt issue and all that. So give us the background to the pastoral letter and the opinion polling. So let's begin that conversation. So perhaps tell us what inspired this particular current move. Then you did the polling poll. What did you discover, and how has that turned out since the pastoral letter?
I think we need to remember that after the 2010 constitution, the financial public finance management framework that was set in the constitution created safeguards and guardrails for us not to go off the cliff.
Yes.
For example, the power of the purse, the power of money was given to Parliament.
Okay.
And therefore, what happened from 2013 to 2022? We saw the government then going out to borrow. They had all these big targets about infrastructure development, and they did more than 10,000 kilometers of roads in the country.
Yes.
If you go anywhere in the country, there are roads.
Yes.
Even in your village and other places. Sometimes
it's amazing.
It's an amazing job.
Yes.
And we give them a score for that.
Right.
Because you cannot develop the country without infrastructure.
That's true.
And I am not talking of just about roads, but there are also electricity and so on and so on. So that pushed our debt
Yes.
to extreme ends.
Yes.
Part of the other challenge was that after we enacted the new constitution, there was a big gap of funding because we added very many additional structures.
Right.
But we did not expand our the income of government.
Right.
And you know, the government does not have cows. They don't farm. They raid your pocket.
And even when they do it very badly.
They do it very badly. So that meant the government expenditure was going to go up.
Right.
And, you know, we sat with a leading economist. I don't want to mention his name. And we looked at the budget in 2010, before the referendum.
Right.
And then we looked at how much is the counties going to take.
Right.
How much is the main ministries going to take? Security, education, health, agriculture, and so on. And how much is the judiciary going to take, and parliament, and how much is going to be left for development?
Right.
And there was literally nothing. So that meant, and that is what we concluded in that discussion, the government is going to borrow.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong in borrowing. The challenge is that between 2013 and 2022, there was borrowing that did a bit of development, but there is also borrowing that went to pay recurrent expenditure.
Yes.
Pay salaries, pay operation and maintenance.
Right.
Which is actually against the constitution and against the law.
Okay.
There was also borrowing that is not properly accounted for, and there's a whole report by the Auditor General.
Yes.
That is one of the biggest challenges that now this regime that has come in 2022
Yes.
has to deal with.
Yes.
We agree there is a big debt problem.
Right.
We agree that taxation has to be worked, but the problem with the current regime, and that is what Kenyans, when we did a survey, are saying, is that the government is not listening to them. The government is overburdening them with tax. Those who have pay slips, the pay slips have been raided in a way that has never happened before. The housing levy is on the pay slip. There is the NHIF, let me call it that.
Yeah.
Because it's changing name.
Yeah.
The NSSF has gone up. I mean, there are so many taxes that are going directly and hitting you at the pay slip.
Okay.
And that pain is having an outcry across the country.
Yes.
There is also the attempt to now go into taxing farmers, so that you have a goat. When you sell the goat, or if you are keeping the goat, we charge you a license.
Okay.
You know, I mean that is spreading all over the country.
By the way, I saw that conversation about the farm tax and all that, and I thought that sounds like absolutely ridiculous for various reasons. One, people are not going to actually cooperate because there is a sense in which that is going way beyond. You know, you should leave some of these people to just do, because Kenyans, and we're talking about 70% rural. Kenyans are still very much in their villages. Our economy is largely agricultural rural. So we really are not a sophisticated industry where if you're taxing services, banking services, IT services, that's easy because those are transactional and you can catch them. But if you go to harass somebody with a few goats and and a few cows, that I think is going too far, in my opinion.
I think that's when we had our programs committee meeting, we had all these number of pastors and bishops from all the 47 counties.
Yes.
And numbering over 100. And we put everything out and we said, let's talk. This is our country. What's happening? What's happening in Garissa? What is happening in Kakamega?
The directors are telling me to take short break.
Yes.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you. There is a real challenge of, crisis. And I think, so I'm going to cut you short. We could come back to that conversation and talk about that pain of, things the way they have shifted. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe you're following this conversation. We need to take a short break, but I guess I'm sure you are enjoying this conversation. We're giving you background to the genesis of where we are, what the Ncck is doing about it, and I believe you want to hear this. So make sure you keep your comments coming in, and let's hear what you know and what you think, and let's enjoy the conversation. So let's take a short break. We're coming back here. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is the Gigi Report. We are having a conversation here. We're talking about, Ncck, polling, opinion polling, and letter, pastoral letter to the president, and a host of other things that Ncck has been championing. And before we went to the break, we were talking about this, there has been a conversation prompted by some of the issues that the current government is actually grappling with. They were elected only last 2 years ago. Actually, it's surprising. We're in 2024. And Canon Kinyanjui, before we went to the break, you're telling us about, you gathered these leaders under the umbrella of Ncck, 47 different county representatives, and you're having this conversation. And you told us that you actually brought all the matters on the board. Let's go back to that conversation, because I think I'd asked you, what have you discovered? After asking people what's going on, what have you actually discovered? And do you feel that this government is actually addressing the real issues that are facing and bedeviling our nation?
Yes. So during the meeting, of course, we interact, and we have very many meetings. On a day, there will be 10 or 20 meetings of Ncck in different places.
Yeah.
And because we have 50-member churches and organizations across the country.
Right.
And we have a population of 17 million.
Okay.
We are the biggest religious body in the country.
Okay.
So when we meet, we bring the voices of these 17 million together. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that emerged from the discussion is that the people are reporting the outcry they are having. Pastors were telling us, I used to get 1 or 2 people coming to tell me that my house has been imefungwa because I have not paid my rent.
Yes.
But now they are getting 10, 15.
Right.
So there's an exponential growth in the destitution of the members.
All right.
There are those who are coming to say, I can't pay school fees for my child. And they want the pastor to help. There are those who even don't have food. They are coming and telling the pastor, I have not eaten for the last 3 days. And I don't know where I'm going to get food for my children. And it is a big, big challenge.
All right.
There are all these people, we got used to the young people who have no jobs, which is very sad as pastors, because every day there will be 2 or 3 young people who will come and say, I have this degree, I have no job, I have this skill, but I have nowhere to work. Can you help me? So this has gone up.
Right.
And therefore, everybody reported that. Then on the other level is now the level of taxation. Because our pastors, although they are largely rural and a large number of them also in the urban centers, they explain the challenges they're having with even their own pay slips. You'll find that somebody had taken loans, but now with the housing levy and the SHIF and the NSSF and all the other taxes, you are actually even below 1/3 You know the one that rule that you take home
Yeah.
the living wage.
Yes.
The one that you should take home.
Yes.
Now they're taking home less.
That are
That
part
are
of what they have signed up
Which
for.
is actually a criminal offense.
Right.
I think the DPP should prosecute employers who are deducting more than the take home is less than a third.
Right.
It's actually in the Employment Act. But now they are not doing this because of their financial or pecuniary impropriety.
Yes.
It is the state that has led them that path.
Okay.
So the outcry is there. Then, of course, now there is the bigger challenge of there were some young people who are trained by the military and embedded in KRA.
Right.
So we understand they are going from home to home. They come and establish your name, establish your geolocation, establish how many chicken you have. If you have mango trees, how many they are. If you have avocado trees, the same. How many cows you have, how many donkeys you have. I mean, it's a whole census of your property.
Right.
And they are across the country because there were reports in Kakamega, there were reports in Embu, there were reports in Moranga, there were reports in Machakos. I mean, it's a whole thing. And we also saw them at least doing the census for the buildings in the city.
All right.
So people are feeling that they are, and we have seen actually, there's a bill in Parliament which wants to license. If you are going to keep a horse, how much you will pay per year. If you want to keep a cow, how much you are going to pay. A license to keep that cow.
Right.
So that level of taxation, it is extractive.
Yeah, certainly.
And it is oppressive.
Right.
And that is what came now from our members. And they said now, this one, the only person who can stop this is the man they put in office,
Right.
who is His Excellency the President.
Right.
That actually was the basis for writing that letter. Then he had also done an opinion poll among our members and asked them which direction do they think Kenya is headed.
Right.
Is it the right direction or the wrong direction?
Right.
And over 70% of them said the wrong direction.
Right.
Then we asked them at some of the key priorities, what is the main problem that they face?
Right.
And taxation and cost of living
Was ranked
scores
highest.
very high.
Right.
Over 75%.
Okay.
So when we look at that, then we said this has to be addressed.
Okay.
Because countries that have gone into strife and anarchy start like that, where people are talking and nobody is listening.
Right.
So we said this is the time now to have a conversation. We know, yes, we have debt, but that doesn't mean that we are not going to run our lives. And even if we are going to be taxed, there's no taxation without consent. So how do you make sure that people agree to be taxed? They give consent.
Yeah, by the way, that's an old conversation. I think some of the people following this conversation, that's one of the oldest political conversation. No taxation without representation.
Yes.
And by the way, that's how the American Republic was established.
Yes.
Because they were under the British monarchy. I think King George the third or something like that. And they protested. They said, okay, fine, King George, you have a parliament in London, and we Americans colonies are not represented in that parliament, and yet you are levying charges on us. So it was actually out of that protest. And that's how free republics, you know, I think the underlying understanding is in a free republic, no taxation without consent. So I think that it's very, very clear. So, Canon Kinyanjui, tell us, given the letter you wrote, do you feel something have you seen the ground shifting? What do you feel has been the impact of the engagement so far? And what are your thoughts about that?
I think even before we come to that, what also came out is during that time there was also the speeches and the rhetoric from the executive,
right,
led by the president against the judiciary.
Yes.
Because a lot of these laws that were hurriedly passed by Parliament got themselves declared unconstitutional or irregular by the courts.
Yes.
And therefore now there was a backlash against the judiciary.
Right.
That they are stopping the programs of the ruling party.
Yeah, certainly.
Certainly. And now that takes us back to what you're talking about. Because a lot of Kenyans now are telling us,
yes, we
don't have trust in our members of parliament.
Right.
Because where were they when all these taxes were added?
Right.
Where were they?
And by the way people are so excited about the young breed of legislators that were elected, including guys in their early 30s, you know? Yeah, so that, I think there's something very, and I think, Canon Kinyanjui, in my own opinion, I think that our parliament is performing very dismally. And while they actually perhaps may have been in a hurry to, to get, the instruments they needed to give to the president, to carry on with this rather very ambitious promises, I think they have done a very poor job.
Yes, because Parliament is the one that is supposed to scrutinize all the policies that the government has made. All the promises were there because there was a manifesto which was converted into a midterm plan.
Right.
And that midterm plan needs to be implemented and it needs funding.
Right.
And that is why now, and part of our questioning was, even as we deal with the crisis of debt and the crisis of high cost of living, we must ask ourselves, in a country where we raise about 1.7 trillion shillings from ordinary revenue every year, and it grows by roughly about 19%, if my figures are right, every year.
Yes.
There is no way we can grow it to a level of 4 trillion because now the budget that we passed, it is way out of our means.
Is it 3.9 trillion or something?
Yeah, it's about 4 trillion. Especially now when you load all the interest that all these Euroboards are earning, which are astronomical.
Right.
The figure is mind-boggling. So really, if you look at the prospects of a future, it is bleak because the decisions being made now is that Kenya will live beyond its means.
Yes.
Exponentially.
Yes.
But if you look during the campaign period, there was a promise that we are going to live within our means.
Right.
There was a promise that we are going to cut back on expenditure.
Yes.
There was a promise that we are going to lower taxes.
Yes.
But now, all those now have been abandoned without a conversation with the people.
Right.
So even if they are going to, that is going to happen, it's very important to get the people on board. What we feel is that the people are not on board.
Yes.
The bus has left. It has left the people at the stage. And people are saying, when is the bus coming back for us?
Yes.
So our pastoral letter was a prophetic message.
Right.
We are pastors, we are not politicians.
Right.
Pastors are not looking for offices.
Yes.
They are already occupying offices.
And I think that needs to be...
and pastors get a message from God. You remember the hierarchy I gave you. There is God, there is the people, there is the constitution, and there is the government.
Right.
So we get our instructions from God and from His word.
Yes.
And we also talk to the people. We serve the people.
Right.
The same people are the ones who are being served by the government. So when the people have a concern,
right,
there are more pastors than politicians in this country. The first port of call is the pastor.
I think, Canon Kinyanjui, I think we should suggest and propose in future formulations of government that pastors actually get some kind of remuneration for, instead of having the CDF fund, the pastoral, because actually you're the people on the ground, dealing with the day-to-day issues of Mwananchi, and that clearly.
I think perhaps I will not necessarily agree that churches be funded by the state, because first for us as Anglicans, we understand churches we have three houses.
Yes.
There's the house of the bishops.
Right.
There's the house of the clergy.
Yes.
And then there's the house of the laity, the lay people.
Yes.
The lay people are the ones who run affairs. And
right.
Christians are in every sphere of government.
Okay.
And they're earning salaries. But we send them there so that if you work in the judiciary or in the executive or in parliament, you are there to represent Christ.
Right.
That you're going to look for justice and righteousness in the country and fairness.
Yes.
I think the issue is the failure, especially of the laity,
Right.
to do their task.
Okay.
And I think people fail to see that.
Right.
Yeah, because if you are not in the clergy house,
Yeah.
and you're not in the house of the
Lords.
the bishops,
Yes.
then you are part of the laity. And the laity are the ones actually who are running the economy because they're in business. They are the ones running the politics because they're in parliament. They are the ones running the judiciary and dispensing justice
Yes.
because they're in the judiciary.
Yes.
They are the ones who are parents in the country and so on. So that understanding is very important. We don't want to have a model like the one in Europe where the church is funded by the state.
Yeah. By the way, and you know, since you have the background, the Anglican background, you need to let people know that yes, for a long time, the Anglican communion were very much the churches in Europe, and it's not just the Anglicans, even the Lutherans, the Germans, the French. There was an understanding, and because really they are the same people making the decisions, churches were actually granted a lot of funding by government of the day, and that's how they built very, very elaborate institutions. And that was that for that time. So you're saying, obviously, and perhaps while we are on it, there has been this little nagging conversation between the relationship between the church and the state. Could you clarify that a little bit? Because is the current arrangement sufficient, or do you think the church is overstepping into the state, or the state stepping into the church, or something like that? What's your comment on that?
I think we settled that with the Constitution. I think it's Article 8, where there was we declared that there will be no state religion.
Okay.
So that Kenya is not going to be a theocracy.
Right.
Whether it is which religion.
Right.
Right now, the majority are Christians, but we said we don't want to have a state religion in the country. The other one is that the state and the religion will operate differently. Okay. And the national government has the mandate under Schedule 4 to basically regulate matters of religion. So, having said that, this is about authority.
Right.
The authority, where does the authority of the government come from? Right.
From the people. We say
the authority of the government comes from it comes through the Constitution.
Yes.
Because the government is a creature
of the Constitution.
Of the Constitution.
Right.
But the Constitution is a creature of
the will of the people. Yes.
So if that is the case, then the authority given to the government, but of course the people are created by God.
Yes.
But the church, if you read the Bible, was created by who?
By Christ himself.
By Christ himself.
Right.
Because Christ said, upon this rock of Peter,
yes,
I'll build my church.
Yes.
Even the gates of hell
shall not
prevail against it.
Yes.
So the church and its mandate comes directly from God.
Yes.
So that is the distinction that people need to realize,
even
as we engage.
Yeah.
And therefore, when the church talks, it is talking after consultation, of course, with the people, but also with God, and much more with God.
Yes.
In terms of the message that we always deliver. And that is why we have pulpits all over the place, to be able to explain the word of God to the people. So when it comes to the relationship now, that authority has to be recognized.
Right.
And every government in Kenya has recognized that.
Yes.
In the sense that there is a healthy tension.
Yes.
That should always exist between the state and the church.
I love that. Canon Kinyanjui, I think there has been a lot of conversation around church and state. And I think those who actually naively think that there should be kind of like a peaceful coexistence, and very defined boundaries, I think I like your angle, a healthy tension, so that then the church cannot just sit there and watch things going wrong. So there's always need for the church to be awake, have its eyes open. And the state should not expect that the church is going to sit there and be passive and let things go by. So that is the tension that needs to be maintained.
And the tension comes because executive power is very attractive.
Right.
People want to run away with policies and laws without question.
Right.
But our constitution also have checks and balances.
Right.
You know, there are also instruments like the independent offices and the independent commissions and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then there is also the people who
Right.
hold regular elections.
Yes.
So in a sense, when the church comes out to say there is injustice here,
Right.
this policy is leading to injustice.
Right.
It's an awakening.
Right.
It's part of public participation, which is enshrined in Article 10, that at some point, the church becomes the agency upon which God uses to speak to those who are in authority, to tell them, change your ways.
Right.
The direction you are taking is the wrong one.
Right.
Change your ways. But we go there with a lot of love and affection, and as pastors, that is why we don't write open letters. Churches write pastoral letters.
Now, yeah, and I think that needs to be clarified.
Because they are shepherds. They are shepherds,
Yes.
and a shepherd shows direction.
Right.
Those who have gone astray, they are corrected and shown the right way. And it is out of love and care.
Right.
Because, for example, the last election, we played a very key role in passing messages of peace to make sure that Kenyans know whoever wins, because that is usually the challenge. Whoever wins will become the president of the Republic of Kenya.
Yes.
So we helped, through the pulpit, pass that message very deeply in people's hearts and people's minds.
Right.
So when the president was elected, people accepted.
And by the way,
People accepted. And you can see that during the period, the first 6 months of Kenya, people accepted that the President William Ruto was elected. There was a judgment of the Supreme Court saying, this is the man who was elected. We were in Bomas, most of us the bishops. And we saw what happened in Bomas.
That's absolutely amazing.
And we were witnesses
Yes.
that President William Ruto was elected. So we came out and said, this is a man that has emerged as a winner.
Right.
Let us all rally around him
Yes.
so that we bring cohesion.
Right.
So we have done that many times. And therefore that relationship, and especially for us as Ncck,
Yeah.
we do not endorse any candidate
Right.
and we not oppose any candidate.
Absolutely.
We are there to represent God and to represent the people and to say, may the best man
Win.
Yes, it's more or less like Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane when he was facing his penultimate punishment
Yes.
by being crucified. And we are in the period of Lent now. We are reminding ourselves of Jesus' death.
Right.
He prayed, take away this cup away from me.
Right.
But if it's your will, let it be.
Yes.
We pray for the will of God to be done.
Right.
And I know politicians want churches to support them.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate that some pastors actually support and endorse. It is
Right.
okay. It is there in the Constitution. Every pastor has a right to endorse a candidate. But you see, in your church,
Yes.
even the one that meets here,
Yeah.
you'll find that not everybody will follow you.
Yeah.
Because that's a political opinion.
Yes.
It's not about following Christ.
Right.
We have all chosen Christ.
Yes.
But we have not all chosen candidate A to
Yes.
be our president or to be our
Absolutely.
MP.
Absolutely.
You'll find even in your house,
Yes.
your wife might have voted for someone else. And that is why we protect the secret ballot.
Okay.
So the relationship between the church and the state is supposed to have that healthy tension, but also to have doors open
Right.
for discussion. And we have a lot of meetings with government at all levels
Right.
to discuss. So even when you are seeing us coming out in the open, we come out in the open to what needs to be spoken in the open. We are like an iceberg. 90% happens under the water.
Yes.
It is only 10% that comes out in the open.
That's absolutely amazing and absolutely amazing. So, you know, Canon and Kinyanjui, you realize we have a few minutes to go. So let's talk about the future. Let's talk about what you see as the next major thing that the church needs to engage with. Currently, I think that pressing into that conversation of the government being accountable to Kenyans, and people making a demand that look, you have an obligation to serve Kenyans, and you must address the real issues that are troubling this country. So where do you see the role of the church, shaping the current political conversation, and what are the other issues that you think that needs to be addressed apart from the issues that we have actually dealt with at the moment?
Yes, thank you very much. I think what we see a future that is bright,
right,
and we want to give Kenyans hope.
Yeah.
We may have made mistakes in terms as a country and the direction we are taking.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen that we have even acquired some debt. You know, where we have reached at GG is that we are acquiring debt, new debt to pay old debt.
Yeah, the Eurobond now. the current Treasury chief, Professor Dongo, I have so much respect for the good professor. He's done economics for the last 40 years. So he actually clearly recently in some media house confessed that we are caught between the rock and a very hard place. And so I guess the move that they have pulled off of refinancing is like Mshwari,
It's refinancing.
It's pulled off an Mshwari kind of an activity, refinancing the $2 billion debt, Eurobond debt. Amazing challenge, yeah.
Yeah, you can't borrow from John to pay Peter.
Yeah.
When that happens, you're in as the professor says, between the rock and a hard place.
Yes.
When you're in between the rock and a hard place, you make very sound policies.
Right.
You make sure everybody is on board. I think their public engagement has been very, very low. And we have expressed this at all levels of government. Let people know what is happening.
Right.
There's a bit of darkness of even to know how bad things are and how good things are, and how the steps that are being taken, how they shall achieve the objectives that the government has set. But having said that, there is also a lot of challenges that we have seen in the education sector.
Right.
Education is key to the survival of our people and to their income levels and so on. But if you look at the handling of the KCPE of 2023, it was reckless, it was incompetent, there were so many errors and so many mistakes. To an extent that we are not sure about the outcomes and the results that were announced. The same thing happens with KCSE. Schools are angry, there are results that were not able to come out, and so on and so forth. So we feel that also the junior high, we still don't have teachers. We still don't have a framework for education of children who are now in junior. So you'll find a school with 800 children, but there are only 5 teachers. Surely. We are the biggest economy in the region. Can't we just get our act together?
I mean, even if it means getting Ugandans to come and teach for us.
There are enough Kenyans who can teach. But the government is not getting them on board.
You remember the 80s when the Ugandans were
teaching here.
Were teaching us here. I was taught by some Ugandans. So if we are in short supply, which obviously
we are not.
Nobody would agree that we are in short supply. I think there's a very serious dire need to recalibrate our priorities. So education, big deal, and some of the missteps around, the examination, the junior high issues. Yes. What else do you think that this country needs to address as we close?
I think at the end of the day, Kenyans also have to call themselves into a meeting. There's a president in the US who's told the people in his inaugural address that don't think so much what you can do for your government, but also think what you can do. Don't think so much what the government can do for you.
Yes.
But also think what you can do for the government.
Correct.
And I want to remove the word government and say the state. Yes. Kenya.
Yes.
What can we do for Kenya at this time when there's a high debt issue, when there is, of course, we went through the drought and famine and COVID and so on.
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to give ourselves agency on how we shall deal with some of our day-to-day living and improve it. How can I improve my business? We are, of course, asking the government to improve the business environment, because businesses are crossing, GG.
Yes.
Yeah, even this one of yours might cross. I pray it doesn't.
It won't.
Because the overheads are high and the taxation regimes is changing for the worse.
Yeah.
The government must always look at ways of creating an enabling environment.
Absolutely.
For example, removing corruption. There is no reason why establishing a business in this country, people pay so much of bribes to get licenses, to get this inspection and so on, so that actually you never make money out of your business unless, use crude methods. So those are small things and low-lying fruits that can be done, and then also do away with the extravagance, in the government, because I think a lot of money is wasted, which otherwise would have gone to education or health.
Absolutely. Canon Kinyanjui, we're going to bring this to a close. I've been asked to wrap up. So I want you to look at that camera and just speak to fellow members of the 17 million strong community of the Ncck, and in 30 seconds, just give them a final word.
Thank you very much. As we come to the close of this conversation, dear Kenyans, we may be going through difficult times, but difficult times require us to be strong and united, because together we can overcome any adversity. We have high cost of living, and even as the state and the government tries to do whatever they can, we also need to be strong and to have hope that tomorrow will be better than today. God bless you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to bring this to a close. Thank you very much indeed for staying tuned in. I believe you've learned so much, and we've been able to explore these issues as candidly as we could. Thank you very much indeed. Keep it Elevate TV. We'll see you another day for another episode of the Gigi Report. God bless you. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to make sure you always get reminded by activating the bell. God bless you. Have a great evening, a day, wherever you're watching from. We'll see you next time. God bless you. Bye.